But I think once you kind of, incorporate yourself and you kind of take that first step, it kind of makes it real. And that's an important step to kind of go through.
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
Discover how to make your first million. And today we have a special guest from United States, Raghu. Raghu, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. So first of all, Harry, thanks for having me on your show. My name is Raghu Kumar. I'm basically an entrepreneur. I've been around the financial markets my entire professional career. I love trading. I love finance. I love gaming. I love money.
Very good. That's fantastic. So, Raghu, share with us your journey as an entrepreneur. You decided to become an entrepreneur? What happened? That your family? Do you have a friend that inspired you? So, what happened there?
Yeah, so my story is kind of interesting. I kind of consider myself to be like an accidental entrepreneur. I never really
Like all of
wanted
them, I
to.
think.
Well, in my case, I basically became a trader. I was a full-time trader. I was trading the financial markets professionally.
Wow.
My brother and I
Where?
basically yeah, I was in Chicago. And then in Chicago, we basically started up our own proprietary trading company. We were trading our own capital. And then one fine day, we realized that if we kind of incorporate a partnership, then we would save on taxes, right? So literally overnight, we went from just kind of being on our own to kind of forming our own partnership, and that's how I think I became an entrepreneur. So
Mm.
this is back in 2006, and then I kind of kept it up, and then
By
I've
partnership,
basically
the
been an
business
entrepreneur.
grow faster, right?
Yeah, so I think there's some benefits to becoming a partnership. Obviously, there from a tax perspective, you're kind of gaining a lot. I think it also kind of legitimizes what you're doing. Until then, I was kind of faking it, and back then I didn't really know what I was doing, to be honest. But I think once you kind of incorporate yourself and you kind of take that first step, it kind of makes it real, and that's an important step to kind of go through.
You take it more seriously, right? Yeah. I always
Exactly.
said, Raul, that all the most of the entrepreneurs are there, they become entrepreneurs by an accident, right? They have a product, they make some money, they have a profit. Oh, there you go. Now you're in business. And then or you heard something from a friend, you want to do the same thing, but you sold something, you make some money, and all of a sudden we are in this business where we don't know anything about it, and we need to catch up very quickly.
Exactly. Because most people think you can just make some quick money and then you're kind of good to go. To be honest, if you're kind of chasing the money, you're probably not doing it for the right reason and you're probably not going to succeed anyways. So, yeah, I mean, if you're kind of in it because you want to build a long-term business and you kind of know what you're doing, for sure, you're an entrepreneur. But for many people, they have an idea, they have a passion for it, and then they realize one day, hey, I'm an entrepreneur.
Mm. Tell us a little bit more about your first business before we jump into the second one. So I think you have been successfully backing in that business. So tell us a
Mhm.
little bit more. What happened? How you grow this business? Uh,
Sure. So essentially, as I was saying earlier, I got introduced to trading at a pretty young age, and I was really fascinated with the financial markets. So my brother and I started trading our own capital. We continued that for a couple years in Chicago. And then one day we decided to move to India and set up a stock brokerage in India.
wow.
So that was a big decision, for us. And I ended up spending almost 12 years living in India, setting up my business.
Big
And
market. Lot of
it's
people
a
live there. Huge, no?
big market, huge, huge market, massive population, massive opportunity. Of course, these things are easier said when you're kind of looking backwards. But when we were in that moment, it
You
was
didn't know what you
difficult
were doing. You were a
because
little bit scared, yeah?
we were scared. We didn't really know what we are doing, to be honest. I think at that time I was 22, 23. My brother was 27. We were single. We had no worries. And we just kind of went there and just gave it a shot. And so we ended up spending a lot of time in the country. Luckily for us, the business ended up, succeeding. And that was essentially my first business. Yeah, Upstox.
So here's the thing, I think that you guys have been very mature because when I was this age 22, or all I was thinking is chasing girls and going to party, yeah, and having fun. So what, since so young age, 22 years old, you decided to travel to another country to open a business in another country? What were you thinking?
Well, for sure, I did my fair share of, partying as well, at that age.
It's not that
you
you
know,
haven't done it, no.
no, no, for sure, for sure. But
uh,
at the same time, at that age, I think, for us, we were kind of doing what we wanted to do. Again, I essentially have never really worked anywhere. I've only been kind of an entrepreneur. And I've been around the financial markets my entire life. So we were just kind of naturally following our kind of natural course in life. We were never really doing it for the money. And so I think because of that, it ended up being more natural than kind of just chasing something because, I want to become like a millionaire the next day.
mhm. Any challenge that you face there in India when you arrive? Because I think that you guys are used to the U.S. law and how things run in U.S., right? And then you arrive there and you are in India, and now do you face any challenges to set up the company to adapt to the system, or is actually pretty similar to what you guys have in U.S.?
So setting up a company in itself was not super difficult. I think the bigger challenge that we faced was kind of obtaining the licenses required to run a brokerage, because obviously as a stock brokerage, you're dealing with customer funds and there's a lot of things kind of going on over there. So for us, it took us a longer time than usual, also because we were essentially not citizens, we're Americans. So, and back then there were not a lot of Americans moving to India and setting up businesses. So I think we got our fair share of kind of frowns and people kind of wondering, what are you guys doing here? A bunch of kids in a new country. But we took our time. We were patient. We were also actively trading on the side. So we were both obtaining a brokerage license, and at the same time, we were also trading on the Indian markets while we were living there. So we had something that kind of kept us busy. And then one fine day, we obtained our licenses and then we set up the business and essentially became a customer facing business overnight.
Any major difference that you guys find out between the trading markets in India versus US in terms of strategies, companies, and research? What do you think is a
Yeah.
bigger opportunity, or is kind of the same?
So trading is trading at a very fundamental level. There's buyers and sellers, there's a market price, and you have to kind of think about where is the price going to go. Now, the thing in our case is all of our strategies were algorithmic strategies. So we were basically programming our strategies and then trading algorithmically. So at that time, this is basically around 2008 through 2010, the US algorithmic markets were much more evolved. So there's a lot more competition, which is a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because it's easier to get going. It's easier to get, to trade, to get filled on your trades. Um, but the problem is that there's more competition, right? So because of more competition, we realize, we're not going to be able to kind of keep up with everyone else that's doing this in the US, because in the US you have a lot of hedge funds and prop funds that are basically all trading algorithmically. So that's what we decided to go to India. And in India, the markets were very nascent as far as the algorithmic markets were concerned, right? So not many people were really building algorithmic trading strategies. So I think from that standpoint, we had an edge, but it took us a long time to basically have the capabilities of trading. And then a lot of times the trades would not go through because it was such a new technology. So there's a pro and a con, but generally speaking, I think when you're doing something that others are not doing, you're going to have some sort of a competitive
An
edge,
edge,
which is
yeah?
always a good thing. Exactly.
Yeah. So, do you guys develop your own software, or you were using the latest softwares out there to do your trading?
So with algorithmic trading, it's actually best to not use external software. You should try to use your own software, like your own strategies. And the
Wow.
whole goal actually is to eliminate any sort of latency. So anything that's going to create more time for the trade to get executed should be eliminated, which is why it's always best to remove as many layers as possible. So if you're using any sort of third-party vendor, third-party software, it's probably introducing latency and extra time, which is never a good thing, because if you're competing for that price with somebody else, you want to be there as fast as possible, right? So we never relied on third-party software. We always tried to code things ourselves. And I think
Wow, you
that's
build
why
your
we were,
own. Wow, that's
yeah,
impressive.
100%.
Wow.
Yeah. To be honest though, it's actually not that difficult. Like if you have the right people on your team, then these things become much more easy to do.
Yeah. So now tell us about your second venture. So what happened? Now you have a successful business, and then you decide that, oh, you know what? I'm doing one more. What happened there?
So to be honest, it was a very difficult decision. I essentially resigned from my first company.
Oh, good.
Um,
It was doing so well. How come?
yeah, so I mean, I basically made a decision to resign and move back to the US because I wanted to raise my kids in the US. I had two kids at that time, and me living in India was not something I really wanted to do long term. So I kind of planned it out. I let
Food was
my
good though, yeah?
co-founders.
You ate amazing food, yeah?
Oh, the food is great in India. The food is amazing. Have you been there before?
No, but I live in London, surrounded by
Oh
people
yeah,
from India,
a lot
so
of
it's
Indian
full of
food. Yeah, for
restaurants.
sure. For sure, for sure. So, the food there is amazing. The people are amazing. The culture is amazing. In fact, I always recommend, if you have the opportunity to kind of go there, and even if it's to visit, or, even if it's to potentially set up a company, go for it, because the ecosystem is amazing in India for these types of things. But yeah, essentially I resigned. I moved back. I took a small sabbatical because I had been living there for like basically 12 years,
Wow.
and I wanted to come back to the US. And then I started my second company, Trading Leagues. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about the second company.
So Trading Leagues is in a certain way like a continuation of Upstox. The whole point is to gamify the experience. If you think about a traditional trading platform, right? So let me ask you, Harry, do you trade or invest on any sort of brokerage?
I invest in properties,
Okay.
but I
Okay.
don't
Have
trade,
you
no.
have
I
you
know a lot,
considered
I know
like,
loads of traders though. Yeah.
yeah, right. So trading generally, I mean, I'm sure a lot of your trading friends, they're usually pretty stressed out, especially traders. It's a very stressful activity. It's a very lonely activity because you're not really socializing with other people. And so the idea is, how do you kind of create like a new way for people to kind of experience the financial markets? And that's what we do with Trading League. So essentially on Trading Leagues, what happens is the users come in and they play games against other people. And these are games that are involving real-time prices of stocks, of Forex, of cryptocurrencies. And there's a money to be won as well, right? So essentially there's a prize pool that's distributed towards the winners of the game. So you
Oh,
can come
wow.
in, play games for anywhere between 50 cents to $20. And then if you win, you can also win some money on the side, right? But in that process, you're basically learning about like how the markets move up and down, what causes prices to move up and down. And you're basically understanding like the nature of volatility, of price action, et cetera, et cetera. You're also learning about technical indicators and charting tools, all these things, which is required to, if you want to actually become good with the financial markets, it's important to kind of know these things. So we've tried to gamify the experience, and so far so good.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.